Welcome back to It's One Podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Bailey.
And Bailey, before we start today, I just want to talk to you about libertarianism.
Libertarianism?
Yeah, libertarianism, because libertarian is the right way to go.
Listen, dude, we aren't a political podcast.
Are we not?
No.
Why are we not a political podcast?
Because we want to be inclusive to all of our listeners, regardless of their political beliefs.
Yeah, libertarianism. Do whatever you want.
That's not exactly what that is, but okay.
Oh, am I misunderstanding that completely?
I mean, I don't know if misunderstanding is the word. You're just painting it in a different light.
Oh, well, hopefully the movie that we talk about today I won't paint in a different light or misunderstand.
That's fair.
And what movie is that? I was trying to get you to say that, and then you were like, "Oh, that's fair."
So today's movie is Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele.
Who's
You may know him from Key and Peele.
Oh, is it Jordan Peele?
Yeah, from Key and Peele. Or from Nope. He also did Us. Both fantastic movies. We did a Nope episode if you guys want to go back and check that out.
But not as good as his directorial debut.
No,
He also wrote this.
Yeah, my favorite Jordan Peele movie is Get Out, for sure.
100%. No, this is easily the best Jordan Peele movie, hands down. If you don't agree with that, have you seen this movie?
Well, I mean, it's okay to disagree with that.
Have you seen this movie?
It's pretty good.
It's amazing. But since you said it's pretty good on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you give it?
I'm going to give it a 4 easily. No problem with that. Easy 4. Maybe a 4.5. Definitely a 4.
Why 4?
So I think that it captured a lot of really cool horror elements. And it also has awesome comedic relief. It feels like a modern Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
Or, any movie where someone is just being manipulated the whole time and they know what's going on, but everyone's like, "Nah, you're tripping, bro."
They're like, nope.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, to me, this is an amazing movie. It's got a lot of cool horror elements. It's got a lot of social elements. And it's got funny moments. And because of that, it just ranks really high.
So I'm going to give this a 5.
Okay. I think that's a fair score.
And the reason I give this a 5 is because the first time I saw it blew me away, right? I was like, that was not what I was expecting, because I went into it thinking that it was going to be kind of like a comedy. Don't get me wrong, there are funny elements in there, which we'll get to. But it was a really, really great horror movie from a person that I never would have thought would do a horror movie, much less like horror. I didn't know that Jordan Peele actually was a big horror person. I thought that he was just comedy. I 100% misjudged him because, oh my God.
No, exactly. When I first saw this movie and knew he was the one who directed it, I was very, very surprised at how well done the horror elements were, because I was also expecting it to be a comedy because of Key and Peele, because that's where I knew him from.
Well, and I'll even go on record and say that it gets better the more that I watch it. This is one of the only movies where I've seen it multiple times, and I've had some people say that Midsummer's the same way. When you watch it, it gets better every time because you notice things. I disagree. I think Midsummer gets worse the more you watch it. I think this movie gets better. This is one of those where there's a lot of hidden subtle things that you pick up on subsequent views, and because of that, it's easily a 5.
So we're not doing spoilers yet, but I agree with that statement, and I'll explain why when we get to the spoiler section.
But before we do that, what do you think RogerEbert.com gave it?
Probably a 3.5 on their scale, so yeah, I'd say a 3.5 or a 4 on their scale.
Close. It was a 3.
Okay, that's a little bit lower than I anticipated.
It was 3 out of 4.
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, yeah, I know.
For our listeners.
For our listeners, it was a 3 out of 4 on their scale. And I mean, I disagree, but that's fine. To each their own. But this movie stars some very, very notable people. I would say now. Because if you're a fan of Daniel Kaluuya, is that how you say his last name?
I think so.
because he plays Chris, which is the main person in the movie. I don't remember seeing him really in anything before this.
This is the first role that I know him from.
But because of this, he is absolutely fantastic and also plays in Nope as well. I think he comes back. He's like one of Jordan Peele's people.
So I really liked him in Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh,
That's probably my favorite role he's done.
I would say this is my favorite role, but the other one was Lakeith Stanfield, which I knew him from a few movies. He was in Knives Out. The main thing that I remember him from, and if you've ever seen it, have you ever seen Sorry to Bother You?
I have not.
I could tell you the ending to that movie and you wouldn't believe me. Good movie though. But that was the first movie that I remember seeing him in, and I really, really enjoyed that movie. He's a funny guy. But it also has some really cool people like Allison Williams, which I'm looking at her IMDb right now. Was she in Megan?
I think so. I don't. So the only person that I recognize like super well is Chris.
That's the only one that I recognize as well. I mean, she's been in a few things. Nothing. Most of these people aren't in anything really good. Him and Lakeith are the only people. Well, okay, Stephen Root, who plays Jim, he was in Barry.
Okay.
He the guy that trains Barry,
Okay.
Monroe. That's who he was. I recognized him.
So I've seen Barry, but I didn't immediately catch it or catch that it was the same dude.
I think that's really it because he's done other things. I want to say that most of these people got bigger because of this movie.
Yeah, no, this movie was definitely put people in the forefront that I hadn't seen before and wasn't familiar with their work.
And it makes me want to go back and see other pieces of work too.
Yeah.
Well, what would you give a back of the box spoiler free summary? Like what would you give that? How would you give that?
If I was to give a back of the box summary for this, I would say that Chris is, going to visit his white girlfriend's family for the first time, and it's a nerve-wracking experience. And when he gets there, they're strange and acting like overly friendly, but in kind of a weird way. You know what I mean?
Like an I voted for Obama kind of way?
Well, not necessarily in an I voted for Obama kind of way, but almost like secondhand or not backhanded comments.
Like I would vote for Obama a third time?
No, like oh, you're genetically superior, so you should be doing more physical activity.
That would make more sense. These are both things, by the way, that are said in the movie, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
If nobody caught on to that.
Yeah, I would say that it's, he goes to visit his girlfriend's family and they make a lot of backhanded, strange comments to him that doesn't sit well. And he's trying to find out why it doesn't sit well, or he's going to find out why it doesn't sit well.
Before he gets out.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that if I was to give my summary, it would be don't go into a white woman's house.
I mean, I guess.
That'll become funnier once we get into the spoiler section. If you've seen the movie, you'll think that's funny. If you haven't seen the movie, you'll be really confused. Watch the movie. But yeah, overall, I would say that this movie's fantastic for anybody that hasn't seen it. If you're a fan of horror and you want something that's different, but not different, if that makes sense. It's a unique take on an old trope, if that makes sense. Of that trope of like going, the uneasiness of every horror movie where, they're like, don't go into the house.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I disagree.
Oh, okay. Well, save that
Okay.
because I guess we'll get into the spoilers so we can talk about that. Or is it you don't want to get into the spoilers?
Before we get into spoilers, I just want to say that if you have any comments or questions regarding our podcast, or if you want to leave us a review, we are available for review on various places, and any questions or comments can be emailed to us at twoidiots1podcast2022@gmail.com. And with that, I'm going to roll the spoiler music. That's the spoiler music.
Thank you for saying that. I'm sure they heard it. But in case they didn't, then you know that's the spoiler music.
Yeah.
So, how many times have you seen this movie?
I think this is my third time seeing it.
Did you pick up on anything in this viewing that you didn't see in the other two?
This is what we were going to talk about. Yes, I did pick up things in this viewing I didn't see in other viewings. And it's why I think that this movie gets better every time you watch it, which I'm in agreement with you in regards to it being better than Midsummer in that regards. So one thing I picked up on this viewing, which is like my third time seeing it, is all of the subtle things that Rose did that you think is her being like a sweet girlfriend and trying to make Chris feel more happy and more like stoked about going to visit her family who, you know, he doesn't know and they don't know he's black, and he's nervous about that because that's like a natural thing to be nervous about.
Right. How is this white family going to react to you dating a black man?
Yeah, and she says, "Oh, you're my first black boyfriend." She makes it a big deal.
Right. She's and says that my dad's going to say that he voted for Obama a third time, or he would vote for Obama a third time, blah, blah, blah.
So I noticed her statements being like off this time because they're not trying to reassure him, or they're trying to reassure him, but they're not being said in a legitimate fashion. She's intentionally misleading him to make him think he's safe and that there's no danger and that they're super cool and everything's going to be great, so that he's lulled into a false sense of comfort.
Right.
And I noticed that in previous viewings. I didn't notice it my first time viewing it. I thought she was just the sweet girlfriend. But in the second viewing, I noticed it. But in this viewing, there's so much. Like, the reason she doesn't want the cop to check his ID isn't because she's concerned that...
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because this was one thing that I caught. This is what started this whole thing, is I never caught it until this viewing where I was like, oh shit,
Yeah,
that's why she's doing this.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with, oh, the cop's being a racist prick, which he is being a prick. But that's not why she's upset. She doesn't want there to be a paper trail linking, you know, Chris, who she assumes is going to go missing because she's going to make him missing, with her, who is taking him to basically the slaughterhouse.
Right. And the way that is presented, the first time I watched it, my thought process was, oh man, you're a racist piece of shit for just automatically wanting to ID the black person.
Yeah, fuck that cop.
Yeah. And then watching it this time, I was like, oh, that's what she was doing. It had nothing to do with racism. It was, there needs to not be a paper trail because we're going to do horrible things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are so many moments like that that I just didn't catch before, that this time I was just like, ooh.
So, fun fact about the deer that they hit.
Okay.
That was Jordan Peele.
The noise that made, yeah, I saw that.
Okay. Now, do you know the opening theme song? What they're saying?
The Run Rabbit.
Okay, I'm sorry. When the credits are rolling, not the Run Rabbit. We'll talk about that one. But like the music choice in this one was really, really good.
I don't know what specific instance you're talking about.
Where they're speaking Swahili?
Oh, no. I have no idea.
Okay, so that is a very, very, very clever thing where if you look up the words, the only thing that's in English is brother. Everything else is in Swahili. But it literally translates to brother, run, listen to the elders, listen to the truth, run away, save yourself.
Oh, that's very on the nose.
Yeah, and that's what they're singing and what you're hearing when he's in the car with her and they're doing that transitional period, which also I wanted to talk about. The thing that I caught the second time that made this a little bit better is when he is smoking and she's like, no, it's really bad for your health, you need to quit. It's not about him quitting because she wants him to be healthy.
It's about they want the vessel to be as healthy as possible.
Right. Like, it's a bad habit. We want you to live longer because we're going to transplant someone's brain into you, basically.
Okay, so I made a comparison earlier to Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
And stuff like that is where I draw the comparison. Because in Rosemary's Baby, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if our listeners remember or have seen it, But during that movie, and because it's like 60 years old, I'm going to spoil it. And it's based on a book that's also super old.
If you haven't seen the movie and this is your first time hearing about it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry too. Go watch it; it's phenomenal. But during that movie, the neighbors bring Rosemary drinks and health tonics and stuff, and the reason they're doing this is because she is the vessel for the spawn of Satan that she's birthing. So she's a vessel, so they're trying to keep her healthy. He's a vessel, so they want him to stop doing unhealthy things.
Well, and that makes the dinner scene or the party scene, I won't say the dinner scene, which was also uncomfortable, but like because that was another instance of it, but like the party scene where he's being shown around to everybody and they're all making these fucking comments about him.
You mean the pre-auction?
Yeah, the pre-auction, that's literally what it is. But that knowing what they're doing makes that really uncomfortable.
Absolutely. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, cool, a random party. And I noticed that they were making offhanded comments that seemed suspicious, but my initial viewing, I had no idea that they were like trying to determine how much money they would pay to get transferred into it.
Right, they're trying to figure out their product. Like he is literally a product that they are trying to buy and they want to know, is this the right one for me?
Absolutely. And it's very similar to like slave auctions.
And that's why the bingo game was a slave auction is the purpose that he was supposed to be, because that's essentially what it is.
Exactly. And I don't know. I think that Jordan did the commentary for this so well. Not like his verbal commentary, but the social commentary that he's trying to not personify, but show. I think he's just doing it so well.
No, and I agree. There are race elements to this movie, don't get me wrong, but they are done so incredibly well that it's one of those where I think you could talk about the whole thing and never mention it and it would still be a good movie.
No, and exactly, because the horror elements of this movie are obviously race related, but even if, Chris was white and it had nothing to do with race, the idea of going to your girlfriend's house with her family you've never met and being auctioned off and having them like transplant your brain out for an older relative, that's a horrifying thought.
So do you know where this came from? Where
No.
you got the idea?
No, I don't. And you said that it was, a unique idea, or not a unique idea. What exactly was your quote earlier?
It wasn't. It's like how did I say it? I can't even remember. I have to go back and look. It's a trope because essentially it came from an Eddie Murphy joke about how people, and it was, what was it? People will go into a haunted house and he's like, I don't understand that, because the first sign of a ghost or some spooky shit happening, I would nope the fuck out of there real quick. And that was that whole idea of people do stupid things. And throughout this movie, everybody is telling him, don't do this. They say multiple times, get out. Like, don't go in there. Why are you doing this? And because of that, I think that it's a trope, because everybody says, don't go into the basement. There's a noise. You as the audience member are sitting there. You hear the noise and you're like, oh, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then you go into the basement. You're yelling at them like, why are you doing that? You're stupid. The same thing with, Scream, where she's on the phone talking and saying, I don't understand why they always run upstairs. And then she runs upstairs when Ghostface is chasing her. But Rod tells him, don't go into a white woman's house. Like, why are you doing that? That's stupid. That's dangerous. Don't do it. And everybody tells him that, but he still does it. And that's why I think that it's a trope. And even when the obvious signs are there, where the phone's getting unplugged and he knows it, and all this shit's happening until it really, really boils over, that's when he decides to know better, but it's too late.
Well, another issue he has is he trusts Rose. Even once it's clear that something fucked up is about to happen, Rose is still playing like, oh no, I'm here on your side. I'm here for you. I don't know why they're being so fucking weird. And it's gaslighting and manipulating him.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, and I agree that it's tropey thinking about it from that perspective, but I also get why he stayed, because he's not trying to like fuck up his relationship. Up until he finds out that she's fucking lying the whole time. That reveal,
Was amazing.
the first time I saw this movie, I distinctly remember I was laying on my futon watching it, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago. And when he pulled out the pictures that showed her with all of these like other people, I was like, fuck. I was like, ah, fuck. I was like, this is great.
And the reason it's such a good reveal is because up until that point, there is no indication that she is in on any of this.
There's a whole bunch of indication. It just seems like she's being a good person, though.
But your first time viewing it, there's no indication at all. She is there. I hear what you're saying, and when you watch it the second time, you pick up on the shit like with the ID and the you know smoking's bad, her throwing out the cigarette and all that. Even when he takes the picture of Andre and he starts freaking out, telling him to get out and yelling at him, and she's defending him, saying, "Look, we need to go for a walk. You're upset. Let's go for this walk." And she takes him very far away so that way they can do the auction. Shit like that is present. You just don't think about it. And because of that, up until that point, you could probably say that her whole family, her family is in on it, right? You see the dad do the auction, you see the brother standing there, the mom in the doorway, they're in on it. Nothing really has presented itself that she's in on this. Maybe she's oblivious to the whole thing and this was kind of the evil parents. When he opens that shoebox and starts looking at the pictures of her and starts seeing all the different black people that she has dated throughout the years, you're like, oh my God, she was lying. And then the last two photos are the fucking groundskeeper and the maid.
Grandpa and grandma.
Grandpa, well, you don't know it's grandpa and grandma. But that was just like, oh my God. She's fucking in on it.
Yeah.
And he knows.
Exactly. And he's like, where are the keys? And she's like, oh, I'm looking for the keys. Where are the keys? Oh, I'm looking for the keys. Where are the keys? I can't give you the keys.
Can't let you leave, right?
Oh.
As they're in her hand the whole time.
So fucking good. That was done so well. That scene of her on the staircase and him down there like between the parents, and you can see the dad walking around in the room next to him, and the mom hanging out over there by the staircase, and the brother like menacingly hanging out
with the fucking lacrosse.
Yeah, that is, the tension there is so high because he knows and everyone else knows and we know, but she doesn't know that he knows. And because Rose doesn't know that Chris knows, it just creates so much tension. And then he's almost crying and he's like, where are the keys, Rose? And she's like, oh, I can't give you the keys.
In this super sadistic way.
It's so good.
No, it was phenomenal. Like the acting in that part was phenomenal by everybody. And you're right, that's one of the best tension moments, I think, or probably the best tension moment. I don't think that there is another good one in that movie. Let me rephrase that. There are good tension moments, but nothing of that caliber where you're sitting there and your heart's racing. You're like, that's the climax of the movie.
Absolutely.
And shit like that is why I enjoy showing people this movie, especially watching people's reactions for the first time. Because I've shown this movie to people and watched it with them for their first time. And this is one of those that I love showing them because they're like, oh, she was in on it. I'm like, yeah, she was. She's a sadistic bitch. You didn't know that, did you? Oh, this movie is just amazing. I get so excited talking about it.
It's pretty good. What do you have next for us?
So one thing that I did want to talk about was the concept of putting the person's brain, but not like fully, into the other person. Because essentially the point of the movie that he was trying to make was the suppression of black people in cinema. Or horror movies, sorry, not, well, in cinema too, but like, horror movies in general, right? He's on record saying that there is a devoted fan base of black people, right, that don't get the representation on screen that they deserve. And that's kind of what the sunken place is, which you can also it's also multi-layered, so it's just the suppression in general with the things that they're saying. And the concept of having that little piece of you still remaining but being a passenger is kind of terrifying. Like when the art dealer is explaining to him, this is how it's going to work, right? I'm going to control everything. You're still going to be there, but you're not going to do anything but watch. But you'll still be there. There'll be a little piece of you, but I'll be controlling everything.
That's worse than death. Like, to me, that's a fate significantly worse than death.
Well, and then when you look at it, every time grandma and grandpa do their thing, it is terrifying to know that when they have those moments where their nose are bleeding, even with Andre, where he freaks out, you're like, oh, that's them. That's that little piece that's still left that's kind of taken over. Just horrifying. It's horrifying watching how they interact with everybody, going, oh, you're constantly trying to fight to be able to say something, to let them know this is not really me, but it'll never happen unless they do the Flash for some weird reason when they have an epileptic seizure, I think is what the dad says.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole concept just terrifies me.
No, it's very scary. And that's another element of this movie I really like is the hypnosis element. It kind of reminds me of Annihilation, which more book Annihilation.
Yes.
Which is something else we also discussed if you guys want to go back and check that out.
Dan, you're just doing lots of callbacks today.
But it reminds me of the hypnosis that the psychiatrist does in that.
Right.
Which, you know, she's also a psychiatrist, so it's very similar.
Moral of the story, don't trust psychiatrists.
No, dude. Anyone who can get in your brain like that and is like super chill about it, don't trust them. Because if someone's chill about the fact that they can hack you, it means they're probably hacking you.
There are a lot of psychiatrists that I like. In fact, one psychiatrist I, text and bullshit with because he's fucking hilarious. I met him for the first time today. Super cool guy because he lives in Texas and just comes up on the weekends. Really cool dude. Absolutely fucking hilarious. Doesn't act like a psychiatrist, if that makes sense. But he'll be prescribing people fucking medications.
He's in your head, bro.
No, he's not. He's cool. Don't talk about him like that.
That's exactly what a mind-controlled person would say.
Also, the process of putting people under with the teacup is really annoying. Like listening to that whole scene where she puts him in the sunken place is great. And I love the moment where she says, now sink into the floor. And then, the beat just drops and he sinks into the chair and all that. Great acting on his part. Hearing her rotate the spoon around the fucking cup annoys me.
So I actually really like that process of putting people in hypnosis because it's such an innocuous activity.
No, I agree. Like, it was really cool. The sound just annoyed me. That's what I'm saying.
I feel that. I understand what you're saying.
She couldn't put me under hypnosis because I would be #triggered by the noise.
That's
really, no, you can't put me under because that makes me like just ugh. I don't even know why I got on a soapbox about that.
No, you're okay. I'm glad you did. Because like I said, I thought it was a super innocuous activity, and because of how, passive it is, it's something that literally anyone could do. And I would notice that they were being weird with their tea, but I wouldn't be like, oh, this person's trying to hypnotize me.
And he even knew she was being kind of weird because he comes back in and she's just sitting there and then the light comes on and she basically kind of forces him to sit down with the way that she's saying things. Like, come on, take a seat. Come on. What'll hurt? That's my daughter. Take a seat.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, we're not doing this when he finds out what she's doing, but she's already in his head.
Right. It's way too late. He wants to resist, but he can't. Because, like you said, it was such an innocuous thing. You don't think about it. She's just doing something weird with the tea, whatever.
So I don't know if you caught this, but did you notice Rose does the same thing?
Yes.
So my thinking is he was probably already primed for that to be an effective hypnosis technique.
Oh, I didn't think about that because they have been together for 4 months.
Yep.
Okay, so that brings the other thing. Between her and her brother, whose name I have to look up because he was kind of weird, who do you think has the worst wrangling methods? Jeremy.
Um,
Between Rose and Jeremy, because we see Jeremy do his thing, and ironically enough, his helmet that he has is like a Knights Templar thing.
so I don't know if wrangling is the best word to use to describe what they do.
That is the term that is used in the movie.
Yeah, right. No,
Like,
I know it is, but I don't like wrangling as a term for this.
I mean,
But
I don't either, but that is the term that they use. I would say the abduction process.
yeah, abduction is significantly better. So whose do I think is better?
No, who's worse? And we can say wrangling because that's what you would say with cattle, and they're treating them like cattle.
I mean,
It just adds on to it
I hear that.
because they're dehumanizing them.
No, absolutely.
But which one? Because she says you're one of the lucky ones. I hear Jeremy's methods of wrangling are horrible.
Right.
I forget who says that, but I'll go first and say I think Rose is worse.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
So I think that Rose is probably better. And that's just because they're probably having sex. This isn't where I want to go with this. This isn't where I'd like to go with this. But in the event that I was going to have my brain transplanted into someone else and I was going to lose all control of my body, I would rather the time leading up to that be me thinking I'm in a loving relationship with a pretty lady and just being lied to and getting laid semi-regularly prior to this horrible thing happening, rather than me just living my normal life and walking down the street one day and having someone kidnap me. Because realistically, Chris has the opportunity to feel safe and to feel stoked up until it's obvious he's about to get fucked up. If he was a little less observant of everything going on.
You mean a little more observant?
No, I mean a little less.
Okay.
Had he been a little less observant, he could have gotten to the chair where they were priming him for the operation before he knew he was in any danger. And I feel like that would be a better path than to know you're in danger because, oh, this guy's following me. Oh, this guy's kidnapping me. Because from that point on, his life sucks. But with the Rose method, you got 4 solid months, dude.
Which is why I think it's worse, because that's 4 solid months of you thinking everything is real, when in fact it's not. You've been living a lie for 4 months. You've essentially been tortured in a way that you don't know because you don't think it's torture. But the mental anguish that you would have to feel when it was over, like the anguish that he probably felt when he found the pictures, I think is what makes it worse, because the defeat that you see on his face when the art dealer is explaining everything and he says, "You're going to take over my body." And that acceptance where he's like, this is it. He's already been beat down so bad because a girl that he says, because they say I love you to each other, they are quote unquote in love with each other. He thinks she is 100% devoted to him, and it's all a lie. I think is worse than just being abducted by a random person. Granted, they're both horrible, but I think that's worse because it is a prolonged period of torture instead of just simple abduction operation.
So I still kind of disagree, because I think that she was priming him during that period of time so that he would be easier to hypnotize by the mom.
Yeah, that's worse.
Is it? Because it's just preparation for the rest of your life where you're going to be in the passenger seat of your body.
Yeah, but it's 4 months of you being in control without realizing that you aren't in control.
But you're being primed for it. So that immediate thing might suck. But then when the transfer happens, you're just like, oh, well, this is basically my last relationship.
No, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think that that's more fucked up. I think that that person was wrong. I think that Jeremy does it better, like in
More
a
humanely.
more humanely. Yeah, I think it's because she's a stone cold psychopath.
And he isn't?
No, because there's different levels of a psychopath, right? If you break it down, he is the like thrill kill, like the thrill killer,
Like the Thrill Kill Cult?
guess.
That's a band.
Oh, okay. But he's like doing it just for like a rush. And you see it when he's telling him, you'd be really good at MMA with your physique and your body structure. You ever done jujitsu before? It's like a mind game. No, get up, stand up real quick. Let me show you some things. Because he wants to, spar with him, right? He wants to have that adrenaline rush where she is so fucking stone cold that she has a bowl of Fruit Loops and a glass of milk with a straw and eats a Fruit Loop one at a time and then sips on her. And she doesn't like do like continuous things. It's like is how she drinks her milk. And she's crisscrossed researching the up and coming, and I don't know the technical term for it, like the NCAA, I guess, finalists or whatever, that are basically she's looking at prospects that are going to be in the NBA for their physique because he makes that offhand. And this is the thing that really got me is when the dad says that his great grandfather lost to whatever his name is. I can't remember his name.
Jesse.
Jesse Owens
Yeah.
in the Berlin 1938 Olympics, I think is what it was. And he almost got over it. That part really, really got to me because he almost got over it, and then he wanted to transplant his brain into a black person's body.
So I actually watched an interview with Jordan Peele earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and during the scene where he catches Chris when Chris is running away at the very end, there was supposed to be a line about how, oh, I finally beat Jesse.
Oh, that's funny.
But Jordan decided to cut it at the end because he was like, he's like, I don't know if it fits the vibe I'm going for right here, but it would be funny.
No, it would be. It would be very funny.
Yeah. But I was watching an interview and he said that. I was like, oh, that would have been funny.
He almost got over it. So speaking of that, did you know there was an alternate ending?
So I did because you mentioned it, but I intentionally avoided information about it so that you could spoil me on it.
Thank you for that. So this is the film that he wrote during the Obama administration. So the one that I have has the version of the film that I bought off of Amazon has it. So at the very end, there's commentary where he plays out the scene and then talks about it. He wrote it during the Obama administration where everybody thought racism was over. We've elected our first black president, it's all cool, but there was this underlying racism that nobody was talking about. And that's kind of why he points the he points the finger at the subtle racism of the upper class people that you wouldn't expect it from, because you could easily do the southern redneck, racist guy, and that would be fine. But he's trying to paint it as that subtle racism that was going on in the time that people weren't talking about, and that's kind of what the Armitage family represents. But the original ending to this movie that he recorded was he strangles her. So the scene where at the very end, the parts where it differs is instead of him giving up, he actually strangles her. He kills her. He's called the cops. They pull up.
Instead of Rod with the TSA truck.
TS motherfucking A.
Okay.
And they arrest him. And the next scene is in a prison cell where Rod is waiting, and Chris comes in an orange jumpsuit and sits down, and they have a discussion where Rod's basically telling him, hey, we're going to get out of here. We're going to fight this. You didn't do anything wrong. And he's like, the house burned down. There is no evidence. Nothing is going to happen. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I will die in here. And he doesn't look at him. Like, the acting is phenomenal between the two of them, but he doesn't look at him until the very end where he tells him, I'm never going to get out of here. Stop wasting your time. And then hangs up the phone. And the final shot is him walking down a corridor to be placed back into his cell. And he said the reason, and I like that ending. I think that ending fits the movie. And he said in the thing, the reason he changed it was because when the movie came out, there was a shift. The woke culture, I guess, was starting to pop up and rise, and it was being more openly discussed than it was. And he felt like people needed a hero. So instead of having that depressing ending, which I think fits the whole movie and is extremely good, he changed it to where Rod shows up and delivers, the heroic thing of she's basically going to bleed out. He didn't kill her, but she'll bleed out. Everything will be okay. He's getting out of the scot-free. And then it's kind of funny because Rod's the comedic relief, saying, I told you not to go in that white bitch's house. So that is the original ending.
So that's not what I expected. So this is what I thought the original ending or the alternative ending would be. I assumed that instead of it being Rod that got out, it was the actual police, and they saw a black man over a white girl strangling her, didn't ask any questions, and immediately shot him. That would have been my assumption for the alternate ending, which would have been shitty. I'm glad they didn't do that. But had that been how it ended, I would have been like, oh, that's fucked up, but that's also probably how it would happen if the police had arrived.
Right, and that's what he was going for. The fact that if this actually did happen, he would be arrested. The system favors. Well, okay, yeah, he probably would have been shot, but the system favors rich white people over poor black people. So in that situation, who is winning? The rich white people, obviously. But I can see where when this film was released in 2017, I could, the cultural shift was changing. I can see why he wanted to redo it, but I think the gut-wrenching impact of the original ending makes it better. Because it's not supposed to make you comfortable. It's not supposed to be one of those things. Which one do you like more?
I'm happy he went with the ending he did, simply because I think that if he had gone with a darker ending, it would make it less enjoyable on subsequent watches.
So I'm going to call that the Requiem for a Dream effect.
Yeah, I think had he given it a super dark ending, it would feel too much like Requiem, where it's like, shitty thing, shitty thing, shitty thing, fuck. This is how it ends. Instead of it being shitty thing, shitty thing, shitty thing, shitty thing. Oh, you're saved. Which I guess is kind of cliche that I like the good ending rather than the bad ending.
Super cliche.
But I feel like for this specific movie, the good ending would be better. Which isn't to say I don't ever like bad endings, because who doesn't like... I'm trying to think of a movie where it ends bad and I'm like, oh, that's great.
I don't want to say because I want to do the movie, but there's one movie that comes to mind that ends horribly, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Pulp Fiction?
No. It's a horror movie. Probably not one that you'll guess.
Okay, we can move on.
Yeah, I don't think you'll guess, but I'll tell you off air.
Word. What do you have anything else for this movie?
Yeah, the last subject that I want to touch on is Rod.
Good old Rod.
Because I think the comedic timing in this movie is perfect. There's never an instance where it feels like it's overdone or it was mistimed. There wasn't just some injection of comedy. It breaks it up perfectly.
It's Jordan Peele, bro. He's a comedic genius.
No, he 100% is. And that's why with him putting Rod in there and putting his, comedy spin on it is great, because he inserts it in a way that it's funny. I think the best instance of it is after Chris has been abducted, basically, by this point. And he's sitting there doing the call, and he goes, hold on one second. Pushing, goes, you lying bitch. I got you. I fucking got you. Oh, I'm going to record you. Got your ass. And he sits there and he's talking and he's like, so Chris said he's going up to your parents' house or something. And she goes, Rod, isn't it obvious? You want to fuck me. And then she goes on this whole thing where I've seen how you look at me. And when we were out, you couldn't keep your eyes off me. Face it, the reason you called me is because you want to fuck me. He goes, I don't, Chris is my best friend. I would never. And then just goes, oh, that bitch. After she hangs up. And I think that he's hilarious. Even when he's explaining to the officer that Chris is gone, he goes, you're going to think I'm crazy, but sex cult.
No, I fucking love it. He's very funny, and his character is. I agree with everything he said.
Yeah, no, his character's great. And that's one thing that I do want to touch on because I think that there are horror movies that try to use comedic relief to break up the tension, and they do it poorly to where it feels awkward, mistimed. It's not funny, but it's more of kind of cringy in some places.
So another really good example of a horror movie using comedy to break up the quote-unquote scary scenes is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
I don't know why you are so infatuated with the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it's just a joke at this point.
It's so good. Chop Top is amazing. Bill Moseley, oof. That's a great-ass movie.
I think it's just a joke at this point.
When was the last time you watched it?
I've only seen it once. I'll never watch it again.
I know what movie we're doing for My Undeniable.
Oh, fuck. Okay, we can. If you want that to be your one undeniable for the whole year, I will watch that awful fucking movie again.
It's so good.
So bad. But no, that was the last thing that I wanted to touch on. This movie gets better the more that you watch it, and from a person who likes horror movies, I think that it's great. It plays on tropes, not in the same way that Scream does. I will say Scream plays on tropes and makes fun of them in a satirical way a lot better than this does. But the movie's solid, great, gets better every time when you're picking up on the subtle things that Rose is doing to manipulate him, and the way the family is just really, really weird. Like, really weird. I think it made me uncomfortable as to how awkward they were, where he's saying like brother and shit. I don't know. That just made me kind of feel awkward.
See, I'm kind of a Hulk Hogan fan, so I call everyone brother.
Well, yeah, but they were doing it in I'm racist but trying not to be a racist way.
I feel that. I know what you're saying. I recognize what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, what's up, homie?
See, I say that shit anyway.
Right, but you don't do it in a way that's, what did you say, like a backhanded compliment type thing?
Okay, but see,
that's subtle racism.
So here's a fear I have, and this is me opening up. This is an open moment from me that I have in everyday life. Whenever I interact with somebody, especially black people, I'm always super nervous that I'm going to say like brother or homie in a way that they perceive as me being like selective because I'm talking to a black person, when that's just how I talk.
Right.
Like anyone who knows me can vouch that I call everyone brother or homie or dude all the time. Girls, men, women, ladies, the dog, anyone. Any inanimate object is. My brother, my homie, my dog, whatever. And I'm always super nervous that I'm going to say it and someone's going to perceive it as, oh, he's talking weird because I'm X, Y, or Z.
Right.
When it's, no, I just talk like that.
And you're
homie.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I don't think that that it could be interpreted like that the way that you do it. I think you just come off weird naturally, so people are like, oh, you're just trying to fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, man.
But with that being said, what do you got for the babble today?
So we kind of talked about it a little bit last time. We were talking about Happy Valley Dream Survey when we were... Let me go back. So on a few episodes ago, we were talking about Erotis, which is an internet mystery.
Erotica?
Erotis.
Oh.
Internet mystery, right?
I thought we were talking about erotica, so I'm not going to know anything about the Happy Valley Dream survey because I thought we were talking about erotica.
Oh. But so what the Happy Valley Dream survey is it was in 2020, there were random letters posted in Utah that basically said, have you been having strange dreams? The Happy Valley Dream Survey is investigating a recent spike in bizarre, unexplainable dreams. If you have been experiencing any unusual dream activity, you can help by reporting a summary, and then it gives the number to report the summary to.
Like 972 or whatever.
I'm not sure what the number is. I didn't write it down because I have no intention of calling it, and I'm pretty confident it's no longer active since this one's from 2020. But this is the one that's spooky. So the original flyers went out in Portland in 2015, but nothing specifically spooky happened around that one. But the 2020 one in Utah was kind of spooky because there were Redditors investigating it. Specifically, aliens did 9/11 and one regit. It's like regret, but it's REGIT. And
Regret.
I think it's supposed to be one regit or one regret, but spelled wrong.
Yeah, one regret. Like that, no regrets.
Yeah, exactly. But they were investigating it, and while they were investigating it, they started posting weird findings, including a phrase that they got back from the number because after you do the survey, it texts you and you can ask it questions, and generally the response is, you have not asked the right question. But sometimes you have answered the right question, or you've asked the right question, and when you get that, you get an answer, and the answer is 9 go 5 jit, which is Croatian, like ancient Croatian, I guess, and it translates to the 5th of September. And what is believed is this Happy Valley Dream Survey was actually a cover for a doomsday cult that believed the world was going to end on September 5th, 2020.
Okay.
And they believe that humans' dreams were interpreting what was going to happen in the future. So they were having folks call to tell them their bizarre dreams in order for them to better prep for the future, or for the doomsday event that was supposed to happen in 2020. Obviously, the doomsday event didn't happen, but that is believed to be the origins of this. Which, interestingly enough, in 2022 over the summer, a similar flyer popped up in Missouri called the Hope Valley Dream Survey. And I did a little bit of research. Nothing really came up about it. It was just a weird flyer. There were a couple of blog posts about it. But I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. Would you call the number?
Well, yeah.
Would you tell them about your dreams?
Well, if I called the number, I would make something up.
Oh, you wouldn't be real with them?
No, it would be one of those. It was like when we went to Trans World and I got that call from this random number, picked it up, and it was a fucking survey over smoking. And the whole time I gave them the exact opposite answer of what they wanted. Because it was very obvious with the questions they were asking that they wanted me to condemn smoking and the tobacco industry and all that. So I just gave them the exact opposite of what they did and skewed their results.
That's cold-blooded.
But that's what I would do in this situation. I would make up a dream about how I was at a strip club and there were hippos and tutus. It was called Titopotamus. And the strippers were all hippos wearing tutus and dancing around and gave me a lap dance. It was really weird.
Were they horny hippos? Do hippos have horns?
No, but they are horny.
So they're not rhinos.
No.
Rhinos and hippos to me look very similar. They're both gray and large. The only difference to me in my mind is one of them is horny and the other is not.
No, hippos are way more horny. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, hippos like chew people in half.
Right, but they're vegetarians. They just do it because fuck people.
Yeah, they're vegetarian for people. But no, I would call it. Would you call the number?
I didn't call the number. So I've known about this since like 2020 probably.
I'll call it right now. I'll call it. Let's see. We'll look it up.
All right, so Taylor's going to call the number for one of the dream surveys, hopefully the most recent one.
What was the most recent one?
I think it's the Hope Valley Dream Survey.
Hope Valley Dream Survey.
And he's going to put it on speaker, and hopefully we can hear it and get some decent audio quality. And if this sounds good, we'll leave it in. And if it sounds bad, we'll cut off.
Oh, they have an email too.
Well, don't email them. That's not going to be as fun as you calling. And I just announced that we would be calling.
Here, let me. Well, they have an email. Yeah, I'll call them real quick just to see. I get a lot of weird calls anyway.
And like I said, if it sounds good, we'll leave it in. And if it sounds bad, we'll cut out everything where we talked about calling.
Oh, hold on. This kind of got fucked up. There it is.
Hello. Please state your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
Jim.
Thank you for calling Hope Valley. Please leave us your experience after the tone.
1600 years ago, there was this dream I had about the future of hypnotics and hippos that were dancing in a strip club topless. It was Titopotamus. And at Titopotamus, there were horny hippos that maybe wanted you to dance with them, and maybe they did not. I don't remember. The dream was kind of vivid, but I could see what was going on. I could see Titopotamus. Titopotamus was real. It's like hang up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. So Taylor called the most recent dream survey that we were able to find, and we'll report back to you next week if there's any.
Yeah, did you hear what they said? The Hope Valley, though. Did you hear that?
Yeah, no, I heard it.
But that was the number for the one that I got off the other. Was it the which one did I do? I did Hope Valley.
Hope Valley is the most recent one.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah, so we'll let you know if anything interesting comes of that, and if not, this has been a fun little exercise that we've done. Do you have anything else today, Mr. Taylor?
No, I don't. I'm probably gonna get weird phone calls now,
Yeah.
but I get those anyway, so it's fine.
Well, good job, Jim.
You're welcome. This has been Two Idiots, One Podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Bailey.
Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.